On Saturday, November 2nd, starting at noon, Kevin Williams is helping sick kids by playing video games. He needs your help to raise $1,000 for the CHEO Foundation. Donate at extra-life.org/participants/347875. The following podcast may contain immature content created by Danny Parkhill and Michael Walsh. Listener discretion is strongly advised. I think we need to get you to learn some French, and you're going to have to be our Quebec correspondent.
Oh, damn no.
Come on, you could be the QC for QC.
That is bad, and you should feel bad.
That's fine. That works for me. That works for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're already recording because that's what they do. They just start in the middle of a sentence, so that's what we're going to do here today.
Oh, there we go. All right, then.
In case you couldn't tell and you're wondering, you didn't click on the wrong podcast. This is The Lasting Mark, but I'm not Val Bishop.
And I'm not Adam Coton.
Hey, we got the gimmick right.
Yay!
Kudos to us. We each get a Subway cookie now because
yes.
Mike didn't get his, and I want to rub it in his face. And by that,
good.
I mean the cookie.
We'll rub the cookie right in his face.
Right
make
in
sure
his face.
Warmed up chocolate chip cookie. Smear the chocolate all over.
Right in his dumb, beautiful face.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Val, welcome back. This is your second time joining us here on WrestleMedia. Is that true?
It is, yes. I got to have a wonderful episode with Jeff on Forging the Future, where we got to talk about the upcoming NXT TakeOver pay-per-view at the time, and we went very in-depth over AEW Double or Nothing, and I think we set some records for length there, because if we haven't been able to tell, I might not know when to shut up sometimes.
Well, that definitely won't be happening during this episode, because I have never set any record for length whatsoever. Just ask my wife, and we'll just try to keep it as casual as possible, okay? Did I lose you, Val? Was that comment too much? I'm sorry if it was. My bad. Val, I'm serious. Did you leave me?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good. For a moment there, I thought maybe I was going to say, if that's all it takes, then you were definitely on the wrong program.
I'd be wondering how we've been friends for this long if that's all that it would take.
We have been friends for a long time. When did you and I first meet? Let's give the listeners a little bit of a background, because this kind of, I mean, I don't want to make myself sound self-important, but it starts with you and me meeting, right? Because, I mean, otherwise this whole thing we wouldn't be here talking today.
So it started with Kortney and I volunteering at St. Mary's of the Lake Hospital together.
Now, let's just be clear so everybody knows we're not talking Kortney, our Patreon supporter at the main event level, because our listeners don't know who Kortney is. Or they actually, to be honest, they might know who Kortney is, because Kortney did do an episode of The Wrestling Show with me once. We talked about the whole Enzo Amore situation. So if you want to hear who Kortney is, and you should, because she's awesome, go back and listen to that in the archives over at WrestleMedia.ca.
Cheap plug.
Oh, there's plenty more of that coming. Trust me. And if there's any show that should be full of plugs, it is The Lasting Mark. Not necessarily advertisements, but plugs aplenty.
Exactly. We're going to plug everything.
We're going to plug every hole.
No hole left unplugged.
No. I love the fact that you kind of took a Jim the Anvil Neidhart quote and turned it around like that. You're a beautiful person. I want you to know that, Val.
Thank you very much. I think this is going to work out very well then.
I do too.
Yeah, so her and I ended up both volunteering as candy stripers at the hospital. And during that time, she had mentioned, oh, hey, you're into wrestling. You should come hang out with me and some of my friends. And that was the point where we ended up all getting together. And I met you. I met Danny. I met Neff at that point. Like, we've got so many friends that I feel like I've known since it's been just over 15 years now, actually, which is kind of frightening to think of.
It is a little scary, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because now I'm like, damn it, we're all old. And I'm seeing everyone's got kids and everyone's getting married. And I'm just thinking, crap, I'm next on at least one of those. So
yeah, you are. Is it cool that we talk about the fact that you're getting married?
Oh, absolutely.
I guess if it wasn't before, I just made it okay.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Sorry about that.
jeez.
Not very good at asking permission, apparently. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about that. You're getting married.
Yeah, so it's going to be September of next year. I'm going to have, funny enough, there's a good chunk of WrestleMedia that's going to be there. Not as a plug or anything, but just because, well, as mentioned, we've been friends for so long that, I mean, I don't really have a choice on Kortney. She's my maid of honor, so I'm stuck there. Not that I would want to change that, so.
I haven't gotten my invite yet. Why not? Where's my invite?
Because I haven't sent any invites out because it's not for another 460 days.
But you got to get them early. That's the RSVP part.
Oh, God, this is way too effing early, dude. I just remembered I can swear, but I'm like, let's make your edit job a little bit easier.
Yeah, not for the first 30 minutes, please.
Are you serious? I just listened to the last thing, Mark, and literally like 5 seconds in is Danny and Mike dropping F-bombs. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, I understand that, but here's the thing. If we had recorded this on a Saturday or even, a Sunday, I could get away with it. We're late to the party here. This podcast should have gone up to our patrons this morning, but this week has been an absolute blessing and a disaster in so many ways. And we tried several times to do this episode of The Lasting Mark. Danny was going to do it, and then he couldn't, and then Mike was going to do it, and then he couldn't. I tried to get as many people as I could, and then finally said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to call up Val, and we're just going to talk a little indie wrestling, and we're going to have some fun on the show, and we're going to get it to you as soon as we possibly can. So the less editing I have to do today, the better. Please, just in this one, tell you what, as soon as we hit that 30-minute mark, you can curse up a storm, you can get it all out of your system, you can work as many F-bombs in there as you possibly want. But right up until then, you're just going to have to keep it inside, okay? But then once we hit that 30-minute mark, you can tear down the wall of censorship like a young man on an independent show making a big debut and tearing down the curtain.
They always say that you theoretically tear the house down, but no. Somebody this weekend decided to take that very literally.
None of our listeners are going to understand that joke until the perpetrator explains themselves. And I'm not going to say anything because I do want the perpetrator to explain themselves on this podcast. So I will hold off on humiliating them because, I mean, they did it themselves pretty well this weekend. So we're not going to go there and be too harsh on him. We'll let him and his co-host do it because let's face it, nobody can be harsher on them than their co-host. And that's all we'll say about that. And we'll move on from that point on. Okay.
Absolutely. So, hey, look, a segue.
There you go. So you got, let's see, we're at about the 7-minute mark right now. So you got 23 more minutes to go, and then you can channel your inner Danny franchise and curse up a storm here. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of things, if that's okay with you, Val.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly encourage our listeners here to do a couple of things for us, primarily to visit WrestleMedia.ca, our home, because this is not the only podcast available. If you happen to be listening for the first time, if you were one of the many, many fine folks that took a visit to the WrestleMedia booth at Chinlock this weekend, and this is your first time listening to us, first of all, welcome. Second of all, check out all the other podcasts that we have. We try to produce a podcast every single day of the week for you guys. So if you love wrestling as much as we love wrestling, well, then you're going to love WrestleMedia.ca. So check it out. We've got tons of shows there, shows about wrestling and movies, shows that count down to top 5 lists, shows that talk about the news and what's going on with some great interviews, shows all about women's wrestling, shows about the future of pro wrestling. There's something for everybody there. So go and check that out. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter. It's 100% free, and every week we bring it to you with updates about the hottest news and events happening at WrestleMedia. We want you to check out all of our cool shows. We want to give you the absolute best, and we do that to you for free every single week. I guess, it doesn't really matter how I say it. If I say we do it to you, we give it to you, it can be taken the wrong way on this podcast. So we'll just say it's free, so just take it. Also, it could be, you know what? This is a bad place for me to be shilling here. I don't know how these guys do it every week. So in closing, I'll just say we would love for you to sign up for our newsletter here, and you can get all the best news and information about WrestleMedia that you possibly can every single week, which a lot of our fans did this weekend at Chinlock. They signed up, and they entered our very cool contest where they could win tickets to SummerSlam in Toronto, which is pretty awesome. If you're listening to this right now saying, yeah, who won? Here's what I'll tell you. We haven't entered the information yet. We're not going to do it until this week, later on this week. But keep listening to WrestleMedia. We are going to be giving you updates on our podcast as to when we're going to be drawing the name. And in the meantime, if you do sign up for that newsletter, we have a contest right now where you can win a copy of the brand new Trish and Lita DVD presented by WWE and Women Crush Wrestling. And the only way you can enter the contest is through our newsletter. You can't click on our website and be like, hey, where's the contest button? There's no contest button. We're just giving it to our newsletter subscribers. So sign up. It's free. You can enter the contest and then unsubscribe if you want. If you really, really want to be like, oh, I hate email, well, then there's your out. We will go ahead and give you that out for sure. But in the meantime, sign up and then and keep watching and keep listening. All right, so now we've shilled. We've gotten the website and the shilling out of the way. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I do want to talk about being on the road a little bit because that will segue into our topic of discussion here. This weekend, we were at Shinlock and you were at, what is it called, La Lutte?
Yeah, I also was attending Lutte Zero Set, which is based out of Gatineau, Quebec, which is pretty local for me, thankfully. It's just across the river because I'm in Ottawa. And this is their fifth show that they've done so far. And they're just continuously growing. They are really kind of becoming another area in Ottawa where there is going to be great pro wrestling that you can find. And it's wonderful because there's so many now in this little greater Ottawa area where it's like there isn't a weekend that goes by now, it seems, where there isn't some type of indie wrestling in this area. And they're really just kind of starting to run with it. One thing I will mention, Lutte Zero Set is also kind of, slightly affiliated to the Keep Wrestling Center, which is actually the school that is being ran by recent AEW signees, Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. So definitely some quality product going on around here.
Hey, maybe you've heard about this. Are they keeping the names Stu and Uno, or are they changing their singles names as well? Do you know?
As far as I've heard and been able to see, they're keeping the singles names. I think it was just the tag name that really needed to be changed, obviously because of copyright issues.
Do you think it's that? I mean, obviously there is copyright issues, but I don't necessarily think that's the only reason. As much as I love the name Super Smash Brothers, really once those guys moved away from being less comedy and being more serious and more of that darker tag team, I don't think the name fits them anymore, to be honest with you.
No, and I think it hasn't really fit them too much since their characters started evolving, because little while back, there was a falling out between Player Uno and Player Dos. And then after that, they both really kind of went for their going on their own, as opposed to being in a tag team.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you there for a second because I want to clarify something. Was that in gimmick, or did they legit have a little bit of a falling out?
Oh, in gimmick, completely in gimmick.
All right. I was going to say, because I didn't know that. I thought those two were always thick as thieves, but they can make believers out of me, so who knows?
Yeah, no, completely in gimmick. And since that happened, we in Ottawa have seen the progression of, Player Dos turning into Stu Grayson and really kind of evolving. And we saw the same thing happen with Player Uno evolving into Evil Uno. And so since then, I think whenever they have said Super Smash Brothers, normally it's shortened to SSB, which I think kind of gets around that. But now with them debuting in AEW with the Dark Order, I think we're going to start seeing that come up more as opposed to hearing SSB or Super Smash Brothers.
And that's probably a good thing, I think. Obviously, if they're going to be on AEW television, they're going to have some national, if not worldwide exposure. You're going to want to go with that name. Now, it'll be real interesting to see if their time with AEW comes to an end, if they get to keep the name or if that's something that AEW is going to copyright as their property. But obviously, that's thinking that they'll leave there one day, and we want to think positive for those guys. So it'll be something to keep our eyes on if that ends up being the case. So getting back to the original point then, yes. Those guys, or at least one of them, has a school there.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the school, or what you know of it at least.
Yeah, so it is the Keep Wrestling Center, and I know Stu's been doing a lot of work there. Uno's one of the head trainers there as well, so they work together there. And they're really helping to develop not only, helping the talent that's already in this area, but also helping to develop future talent. And so with a couple of the Lutte Zero set shows that have happened in the past, the names that they had brought in for a couple of previous shows actually ran seminars beforehand in conjunction with the school. And so it not only helps, local talent get more exposure and get more bookings, but it's also a great opportunity for them to learn more and really have that type of, teaching environment, as well as having the shows as well that we get to see.
So these guys are coming out. They're using Lutte 07 as a way to kind of get their feet wet, which is awesome. And Lutte 0, like, I'm not very bilingual or anything like that, but that means literally Wrestling 07. I'm assuming that represents the year that it was founded. Do you know what the 07 is about?
To be completely honest, I do not know what the zero set at the end is about. All I know is that Lutte means wrestling, and that's what matters.
Good call on that. Nice save. Nicely done there, Val.
Thank you.
All right, so talk about the show. What'd you see?
Man, the show was really great. And one thing that the very first match ended up being Cecil Nix versus Veda Scott. And I have been thoroughly enjoying seeing Cecil Nix really help push intergender wrestling further, because he's been very, very involved with intergender wrestling in the area. Like, he ended up facing Veda Scott. He ended up facing Sally in the past, who's another great talent that we've been seeing a lot of there. And he's really been doing a lot to kind of put intergender wrestling more in the forefront. And the match that they had was very hard hitting, really strong. I got a couple of pictures during it, and I'm trying to make sure I'm sharing pictures and sharing videos so people can, really get an idea for what we see in this area. So I love what he's been doing with that. And Veda Scott always impresses every time I've seen her. She ended up getting the victory in that match, which was very hard fought, and it was a great way to start off the show.
So what were some of the other stuff that you saw there? Because I wasn't familiar with it. I'm not as familiar with Lutte 07. And honestly, it's a terrible thing to say, but I think it's because I see a lot of it, and it's in Quebec, and I don't know where things are in Quebec, and I don't speak French, so I'm like, I don't think I think there's a part of my lizard brain that's like, I don't speak that language. I don't know if I will understand the stories, and you know me, I'm a big story guy, so yeah. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It is wrong. I should just learn to speak French already and just get over it, because I'm missing out on some great stuff, I'm sure, especially because I'd love to do some interviews in French for our French listeners here. So so tell me a little bit more about what happened. Like, run it down for us. What were some of the highlights and whatnot of the show?
Yeah, one thing I will mention before we go too much deeper into that, with your comment about the language barrier, one thing I really like with Lutte Zero set is they have a French announce team and an English announce team.
Well, isn't that standard in Quebec? Everything's got to be English and French, right?
Well, I think it's not the announcers, but commentators. So
I'm pretty sure they also have to have wrestlers that do that, right? Like, they have to have a match first in French, then in English. Is that not how it works?
It feels like
where they got to call their spots first.
Like it sometimes
they got to call the spots first in English, then call them in French after.
Actually, there it would be, they'd call it in French first, and then 2 seconds later, you get it in English.
Oh, okay, good, perfect. So just so long as there's not a barrier.
Exactly. And that is one thing that I do really like about them, is that they do have commentary teams for English and French. So if you are primarily English and you don't quite understand a lot of French, you can still watch the show and you can still get engaging English commentary because they have an entire team for it.
See, and that's great, because like, I'm a guy who's sitting here saying like, it's, I don't necessarily know the language. I don't know if it's going to engage. I've got New Japan World on my computer. I watch Japan stuff, and now, mind you, most of the time I'm watching the stuff with Kevin Kelly doing English commentary, so it does help break a barrier. But, it's not like I need it to be in a certain language for me to understand what's happening and telling the stories in the ring. But even still, I just don't get over to Quebec all that often. So it's a little bit of a different situation for me.
Oh, and that makes sense. And because we're so close to the border, like, even for me to go to a show in Montreal, it's a 2-hour drive. So that's one thing I like about here, is that, I have access to, shows in Gatineau, shows in Montreal, or even shows in Kingston, like this past weekend. So there's a lot of wrestling around.
I think we need to get you to learn some French, and you're going to have to be our Quebec correspondent.
Oh, damn no.
Come on, you could be the QC for QC.
That is bad, and you should feel bad.
It is bad, but I don't feel bad at all. I'm not gonna lie. I regret nothing. You mentioned
story of our lives.
No, yeah, exactly right. You mentioned this weekend in Kingston. Let's talk Kingston. Let's talk Chinlock Wrestling. Have you been to every Chinlock show?
I have not.
How many have you been to?
There was one that I missed. I know I did this one. I missed last year's.
Oh, so you missed the December show?
Yes, I did, because I had surgery a couple of days before, so I couldn't make the trip out of town.
Okay. Well, I can fill you in on anything that happened there, but that's kind of cool that you were there for most of them, except for just the one that they did in December. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome. How did it compare to the other ones you've been to?
I loved the big feel of this one. The fact that they actually were able to have the show in the Leon Center, which is like a 5,500 seat arena, and just seeing professional wrestling in that arena again, in that setting, was really, really great. Because last time we would have seen anything like that in that center would have been a WWE house show. And I mean, there is a decent number of people there. But this show, I'm pretty sure, would have had more people than like a WWE house show would have in Kingston.
It would have definitely been close. I know that I heard early estimates saying over 2,000 people, which is pretty impressive if you think about, first of all, just what indie shows in general end up drawing, but also the fact that it was in an actual arena and that it drew that many. It was pretty impressive, to be honest with you. So, I mean, Justin and Jan obviously need to be very, very proud of themselves. And, we're very honored that we had a chance to be a part of that and sponsor Fred Ottman and some of the other legends. Now, you were there for both the convention and for the show, but you didn't really participate in any of the legends meetings, but your significant other sure did. Your husband-to-be was big part of it. Let me ask you something. As the spouse to be sitting around watching him go to place, Andrew and I had a little conversation at the card table. There's this guy set up and he had all these collector cards. Some were autographed, some were special edition. And he was looking at things saying, oh God, I'd love to get that one, but I don't think Val will let me. And then he would go away a little bit and he'd come back and be like, Val said it's okay. I can get a card.
I can tell you the exact story of that.
Yeah,
because
do it.
I know exactly what happened with that. So hold on. I'm going to look at him and I'm telling a story and he's glaring at me because he's going to find out exactly what I'm about to say. And I just got flipped off. So here we go. So I was chatting with somebody, and Drew had gone over to one of those tables that had the collectible cards and everything.
Yeah. And
as you mentioned, he had come back to talk to me about something. And so he showed me, he ended up getting this Shawn Michaels commemorative card that had like a little, that was like a commemorative Hall of Fame card. And we're both really big into Shawn Michaels. So for me, that was super exciting.
Right.
And he just showed it to me. So yes, I see it. Thank you. Sorry. He's sitting in the living room and I'm helping him kind of feel like he's a part of this right now. Anyways.
Well, he's welcome to grab the microphone and just interject himself anytime he wants. I mean, every story has two sides, right?
See, I'm not saying that because if I say that out loud, he's going to know that you said that he could do that. So,
well, he's going to hear this podcast eventually. So I guess the key is not to do this again after.
He is. But here's the thing. By the time that he hears it, it's going to be too late for him to have taken the microphone.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And now I've said too much.
Yes.
Moving on. So runs up to me and is saying about how there's a poster of a drawing of Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, I want to shout out that guy. Actually, he's a guy that does the Headlocked comics. Drew, our very own Drew Ferris, got a quick interview with him this weekend as well. So we'll be having that up very shortly. So have a listen out for that here at WrestleMedia. Keep your eyes and your ears open for that. We will be talking. I'm actually just going to research his name right now because I do want to give him a little bit of a shout out. We are following him on Twitter right now, and Michael Kingston is his name, ironically enough. So yes, he was having a conversation with Michael, who did, by the way, some incredible work. I bought one of his Finn Balor poster prints for Jesse.
Nice.
And let me tell you, his work's amazing. If you get a chance to go see him or pick up his comic, do it because his work is incredibly impressive. So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I just wanted to shout out Michael Kingston.
No worries. This is the podcast of shills and plugs anyways, so.
That's right. All holes plugged. We forgot about that.
Exactly. No hole left unplugged.
That's right.
I'm very positive that has to be the title of this, is No Hole Left Unplugged.
We're going to go with it. I'm going to write it down right now.
Yep. Wonderful. So runs up to me and is like, oh, so there's this Alexa Bliss poster that he drew that's signed by her, and it was $50. And he's like, oh, and there's also a Becky Lynch one that's signed by her, and I want to get one. I don't know what I want to do. And I just looked at him and I said, if you do not buy it, you will talk about it for the next week. Pick one of them and go back and buy it. And then he's like, oh, okay, so turns around, and I swear it was like a 7-year-old running to get their favorite toy. Like, just turned and like ran back like he just got permission to do this, and it was adorable. And we have the Alexa Bliss poster that is signed here in the house now.
Well, any of those prints would have been pretty amazing, just because the guy is so talented. I like both of those prints; they were incredible, and yeah, it was pretty cool, all that stuff. So yes, you were the talk of me and Andrew a little bit there when we were hanging out a little bit over the weekend, but it was a good time for sure. Did you end up doing any shopping? Did you pick up anything while you were there?
I didn't, because interestingly enough, I actually spent most of my time at the WrestleMedia booth.
Okay, well, how did you like that?
I really enjoyed it. It was great having a lot of people come up and, ask, what WrestleMedia is all about, what we do, and, handing out the prizes that were curated by the different podcasts on the network was really cool, because it kind of made it a little more customized with each prize pack that was given out. So that was really neat. And, both of us got our blue WrestleMedia shirts. So we get to rep WrestleMedia wherever we go now, which is very exciting as well.
I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that. It was a great time for us to be there as well. Let's talk a little bit about the actual show itself in just a few minutes. So let's talk about Chinlock and what a show it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's your cue to talk about it.
That's my cue to talk about it. It was a great show. There were obviously some changes to the announced card. Card subject to change, happens with every wrestling show.
Yeah. I think it was kind of a fate that Sami Callihan wasn't able to be there because Mike Walsh wasn't there to witness him in person.
So we have Mike Walsh to blame. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm blaming Mike Walsh for Sami Callihan missing his flight.
That's exactly it. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Way to go.
Ugh.
All right.
Jeez, you couldn't even be there.
But what did you think of his replacement, Pepper Parks, and the match they put on? I missed it, to be honest with you. I was shilling over at the booth trying to plug some holes. But you got to see it. What did you think of the House of Hardcore TV title match with him and Willie Mack?
I did get to see it, and it was one of the harder hitting matches of the night. It actually garnered a "This is awesome" chant at one point. We've been very blessed to see a lot of Pepper Parks in our area, because we've been the Butcher and the Blade. So him and Andy Williams have been coming through quite often for teaming at C4. So we get to see him. I've probably seen him a few times this month already, just from these shows. And so just seeing him get to take this opportunity literally on like not even a day's notice, like, because they would have told him pretty much that morning, it's like, hey, we need someone. So he would have driven from Toronto to Kingston in order to do the show. And he put on a performance. Him and Willie Mack just brought the house down. It was such a great, hard-hitting match. The crowd was into it. They were pretty much, they were right up there. They were, ready to blow the roof off the place with this match. It was great.
Now, you mentioned Andy Williams, and I just want to quickly clarify something. He's also a musician, right?
Yes, he plays guitar for the band Every Time I Die and is currently on tour with them right now. So fortunately, he's not wrestling right now because he's on tour with the band. But I mean, he has been, funny enough, he's actually been making a couple of stops at indie shows while they're on tour, like going as a fan. So that's been really interesting to see his adventures as a fan, as well as, being a wrestler and being a musician too.
So is he Butcher or is he Blade?
He is Butcher.
Okay, so Pepper Parks is Blade. Kayfabe, yes. Reaching back, pulling back the curtain here. Kind of like somebody else we saw at that Chinlock show, but we'll go unmentioned. What else did you enjoy about the Chinlock show?
I really liked the match between RJ City and Swoggle.
That seems like it would have been a fun one. Like the moment I saw that they were advertising that, I was like, oh, that's good. That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't too sure what to expect because I feel like Swoggle's kind of taken more of a serious route recently with his matches, and he's been doing great on the indies recently. It's been really fun to see, just where he's showing up recently. And his match with RJ City was hilarious. And it truly solidifies the fact that comedy wrestling has a place, and that, you know what? Some of these shows you can cater to a bunch of different styles of wrestling that people would enjoy. Like this match didn't feel out of place. It was a nice refresher. The crowd loved it. So, you know what? I think some people just need to kind of open their minds a little bit more to what comedy wrestling can actually bring to a show.
We actually had an interview with both Swoggle and RJ City. We're very lucky to have that. So again, keep your ears open for that here at WrestleMedia.ca. We'll be having that for you very, very shortly. This is the point where we're going to take a little break. If you're one of our patrons at the mid-card level, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back with the second half of our show. If you are one of our public viewers who are getting this for free at WrestleMedia.ca, stick around after the break. We're going to wrap the show up for you. And if you're one of our $20 patrons like the lovely Val is, just keep on listening because we're going to head into the rest of the show right now. Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today. All right then, Val, I think that's about it. We're going to wrap things up. We're almost at that hour mark. So before we do, I want to go ahead and thank our listeners. If you haven't been here before, this is your first time, we want to thank you very much. And we would encourage you to rate and review us on iTunes or maybe another platform that allows you to rate us and review us. If you could drop a couple of good names and some good things about us, we'd really appreciate it. It's a great way to get those algorithms up. And if you want to support us further, well, you can put a few ducats in the bucket over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. You know, we offer a bunch of cool stuff over there. Val, you yourself, you're a main eventer. You know exactly the kind of fun stuff. You said that you enjoyed wearing your WrestleMedia t-shirt out and about on Chinlock weekend. Well, you got that by being a main eventer with us at Patreon, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got the shirt, and the wonderful thing about it is that you get all of the podcasts extended, uncensored, ad-free. So if you really don't want to hear us shill, or if you really don't want to hear other companies shill, that's a good way to kind of get rid of some of those ads if you just want to hear us talking.
Good call. Of course, there's other levels, $2 levels. You get a personalized shout out from us here at WrestleMedia. We've also got our mid-carder. You'll get the full episodes. You are going to get some ads with those, but the full-length episodes. And we've got our curtain jerkers, which will get you the shows earlier than usual, which is pretty cool too. All that and a whole lot more. We do have advertising levels as well if you've got a small business or you've got an event like our friend Kevin Williams, and he's been doing some charity work as well, and we're happy to give him the platform to do it here at WrestleMedia. So go ahead and visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and check out all the cool stuff, because we just tip the iceberg with all the fun things that we offer over there. And while you're at it, you can follow us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on all the different social medias. So go ahead and look us up. We'd love for you to follow us, and we'll follow you back. And then we just keep following each other around in circles, which is kind of what we do here on this podcast. In fact, I think that's pretty much where we can end it this week. What do you think?
I'm good with that. I mean, we just kind of go around in circles, chasing that proverbial tail. And yeah.
All right. So it sounds good to me. So then that's where we're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for listening to us. And thanks so much. Our regular podcasting programming will be back next week. Danny and Mike will be back to their regular shenanigans, and I'm sure it will be a lot dirtier in their first half than it was this week. So Val, thank you for controlling yourself for the first little bit. In the meantime, thanks again. And on behalf of WrestleMedia, I'm not Val Bishop.
And I am not Adam Coton.
Hugs, kisses, and what's something we can say about Andrew? I don't want to talk about his genitalia like that. So maybe you could come up with something else that was.
What do you want me to talk about his genitalia like that?
How about this? Why don't we say this? Loves, kisses, and tearing down curtains.
Yes. I can't wait for Danny and Mike to be back next week so they can tear down the curtain and tear down the house. And I'm excited to hear his side of things.
That's next week, folks. Thanks for listening.
This has been a presentation of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.
Here's what you're missing out on right now over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.
I'm right with Danny and Mike Walsh, and so is Drew. Like, we are big deathmatch fans, so I could probably go on for like 2 hours about that too, just like I did about pretty much everything I do here.
You guys need to do a show called the Four-Way Deathmatch Podcast.
Oh God, yes.
I'm not even, or how about the 4-Way Podcast of Death? I don't know, something about like, it's got to be something like that. And I think that it should be just the four of you guys talking about deathmatch wrestling. I would be into that. I'm not even a fan of deathmatch wrestling, but I would listen to you four talk about deathmatch wrestling.
Want more? Sign up now at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.